Hello, welcome to The Free Mind. Live show, trying to make the best of things here. Just got my phone box. We'll check it out and see if the audio is set right. Okay, well, some current events maybe. You might think about what's going on in Bosnia and what's the real purpose of it. Actually, I have a little better subject maybe you'll want to discuss. What is the real purpose of the drug war? I think that we can assume that the people in government aren't stupid, and if the drug war isn't being won, then it's not supposed to be won. And if so, what's the real motive? No? Welcome to The Free Mind. What's your first name?
Hey.
Oh, that works. Okay, I thought the phones weren't working and it's just people hanging up.
That's working fine for me. What about those people that want to pull their kids out of school as protest against AISD? Have you heard about them?
I heard you say something about pulling kids out of school. For what purpose?
Because they're not giving, like, I think it was $1 million just to the schools, to low-income schools. I forget what they call them. But they're going to spread it equally across the district, and they're angry about it. So they want to pull their kids out of school till 10:30 in the morning.
That's an interesting question. See, to me, growing up, I always thought the purpose of having the government run the schools was they took all the money from the rich and poor people, and then they spread it out evenly so everybody got the same education. But it doesn't really work that way, so now they have this special Robin Hood deal. Is that what you're talking about?
Not really. It was just recently I saw it on the news. It might be that, though. I've been out of town for a few days.
I must have missed that. That was a little while ago, but to me that's part of the fallacy of having the government do things. I think we've learned by now they're not very efficient at it, and there's not too much more important than educating kids, so why do we let the government do that?
Yeah, but the parents don't want to do that. They're just pulling them out of school to just to be babies about it, I think.
Really? I don't know. What's your suggestion? I don't think he hung up. Okay. Welcome to The Free Mind. What's your first name, please?
Toby.
Toby?
Yes.
Hi. It's a cool
Hi.
name.
Yeah, I had just a quick comment about the remarks you made earlier about the drug war.
Good.
I think that possibly what you may misconstrue as an ulterior motive is simply a misguided motive. I think most of the people in government are probably pretty out of touch with the day-to-day life of most people. So through the course of my job, I see...
What is your job?
I'm a firefighter.
Okay.
I see a lot of the effects of drugs, of things like drugs, violence, things of that nature. And I think that more so than an ulterior motive, I think that most people in Washington are simply misguided.
I think that assumes that they're stupid. And by the way, is the volume okay?
Oh, yeah, it's fine.
Because I can't turn that. If I turn that way, I'm away from the microphone.
No, that's fine.
Okay. And can you hear the other callers when they talk?
Yes.
Okay, because I can hear you. Okay. All right. Well, Toby, the problem I have with that is a lot of the people, I've met a few in government just briefly, and even in city council, they tend to be intelligent, but they also tend to be kind of sneaky and they're the kind of people that if you were in high school, you probably didn't want to deal with unless you're one of them, which you don't. If you're a firefighter, you probably weren't in that crowd just by who wants to become a firefighter versus who wants to become a politician. But they're the people that were always browning up to the teachers and snitching on other people and getting themselves ahead at other people's expense. Now that's a broad generalization. There are probably some that don't fit that. But I think there's enough of them that's who's passing our laws. And if you ever listen to them speak, if you watch C-SPAN or one of those, I mean, these people are so taken with themselves and think that there's some higher form of life. And that's why you have things like this Packwood deal. They feel like the rules don't apply to them. They're a different breed. And I think now we're at the point where we've had, I think we've seen how much the government is scamming us. I don't know if you've ever read this book. I picked it up, finally found this thing. Can you see it all right?
Yes.
Okay, The Myth of Heterosexual AIDS. This is written by a guy who worked for the Centers for Disease Control and the World Health Organization, and he quit in disgust because he was being forced to falsify statistics on how many straight people were getting AIDS. Now, the number was greater than zero, but the percentage was in the decimals 2 decimals over of how many people, and the government was trying to make it a big emergency. Remember, they still talk about like an epidemic for political reasons only, and he wouldn't do it, and they made life very hard for him until he finally quit. He's doing some other things now, but to me, scamming is, I mean, the name of the game. We're finding out, you know, after a politician dies, you start finding out some of the things that they were up to, even Holy of Holies, JFK, you know. By the way, if you're calling in, please hang on. I hear the phone ringing. Just hang on, because I'm going to try to give callers a little more time this time. I think I shut them off too soon last show. But anyway, the other thing is, but they're not stupid people. I mean, Clinton, whether you like him or not, I think everybody will agree that he's already hoodwinked the American public and changed his views a bunch of times. I'd say the same about Bush. I don't have any Republican or Democrat bias in that view. And I think that they're smart enough that they can look out their window, or they can look at statistics and see that the drug war is not being won.
Well, I do certainly agree that the drug war is not being won, but I tend to disagree on the point that there is an ulterior motive. I really think that in just the same instance that take for instance somebody who has a chemistry degree and or is a physicist, but has not spent a lot of time, say, pursuing literature, though they are obviously not a stupid person, and obviously are an intelligent person, that because their focus, their experience, and their priorities are different than, say, a literature major, they're not going to be able to come up with an intelligent discourse on literature. In much the same way that I will grant you that the majority of politicians are not common people, or don't consider themselves common people. For the most part, they are richer, have gone to the better schools and whatnot, and so I think are simply not exposed to things like the realities of the drug war, or the realities of drugs and their effects.
I think the only evidence I see against that's a good theory, and it's a theory that makes you feel a little less bad about what's going on. But for instance, you're talking about crime in the name of drugs, and I think if you turn the clock back a little bit and look at Prohibition, nobody committed crimes to get alcohol before Prohibition. They did it very badly during Prohibition, and you know, you had Al Capone and all these guys rising to power, and Kennedy, by the way, Joseph Kennedy was a bootlegger during Prohibition. That's how he got most of his money to begin with. And so when Prohibition went away, all of a sudden these big gangs, you know, adult gangs like the Nitties and the Capone gang, they kind of went away, or they went into another business, actually. They went more into heroin and prostitution, that kind of thing. And I think the common thread there, if you prohibit something that people want, they're going to get it anyway, but it's going to be more expensive.
Oh,
and so a lot of people who don't have the money to get it and want it are going to commit crimes to get it.
That's certainly true.
Because if you look at other countries, like for instance, Holland's a good example, and Switzerland, where it's legal, they don't hold up liquor stores, you know.
Absolutely. And I don't want to justify the measures that have been taken by the majority of politicians, because I think that most of them have failed. But I just think that there's not so much of a conspiracy going on, or anything of that nature.
I don't know that it's really a conspiracy, but I would say that from my own unscientific conversations that I have with people, most of the people I talk to think the drug war is a waste, that we're throwing billions and billions of dollars out. So I'm thinking, why would a government be involved in this? And if you look, there's some books out now by people who smuggled drugs for the government. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking the number one effect of this drug war is to keep the price of drugs high. You know, why do we have mandatory sentences for really the lower level drug dealers, the poor people that are trying to make a few bucks here and there? Why do we have mandatory sentences? They've got to stay their whole sentence without parole, and somebody kills 3 people and they can get out early.
That's a good point.
I think that's done for a reason. I don't claim that I have the reason, but I have a theory, and that theory is, it goes as far as saying the purpose of the drug war is twofold: to keep the price of drugs high for the people that are okay to sell it, and the number 2 reason is to increase the power of the police force in this country. I saw a videotape of a pretty old show and I honestly forget, it's somebody well-known, and I can't remember who it was. Somebody predicted that that the drug war in this country would be used to that effect, and this was like in the 70s, that somebody was predicting that. I want to say it was, who's that lawyer that died that defended the Chicago 7? Kunstler. I think it was he, but I'm not sure.
Okay, well, thank you for your discourse,
That's
sir.
my theory. Yeah, I enjoyed it, Toby. Take care. Okay, line 1, thanks for waiting. Welcome to the Free Mind. What's your first name?
Orlando.
Orlando. Oh, we're getting good names now.
Uh-huh.
What do you have to discuss with us, Orlando? Something intelligent, I hope.
Yes, what do you think about marijuana and its illegal status?
I think you can guess what I think by what I just said. What was I talking about there?
I wasn't listening.
Oh.
Can you repeat it?
Okay, well, I'll tell you, but you tell me what you think first.
I think it should be legal.
Illegal?
Legal.
Oh, legal.
Yeah.
Okay, why?
Because it's good.
It's good. Okay. Well, I agree with that. A lot of people like it. It doesn't cause people to do harm. I'm not even sure that people hold up liquor stores to get the money, because I don't think although I haven't bought any in many, many years, but I don't think it's as expensive as, say, cocaine or heroin. So I'm with you, man.
Cool.
So what are we going to do about that?
We're going to, beat everyone up and then steal all their marijuana.
Okay. When the intelligence disappears, you go off the air. But keep your baseball cap on with the bill forward, and those IQ points will come back. Okay, I don't see any more calls right now, although somebody told me the lights weren't working on line 3. Let me try it once. Somebody there? No? Nobody's there. There we go. I see someone on line 1, though. Welcome to the Free Mind. What's your first name?
Brian.
Brian?
Yeah.
Hi, Brian.
How's it going this evening?
Fine. I'm Dan, by the way. Nobody seems to... Oh, you know what? I don't see the number up here. Maybe I should do that, and I'll get you...
That helps. I have
think
remembered
that'll
it from a couple of weeks before.
Oh, okay.
Maybe one of the reasons why you don't have so many people calling in that you're wanting this evening is because on the Discovery Channel they're going into Watergate.
Oh,
and
I see.
People who were involved in Watergate are now talking about how they're involved after their police records. So now they're selling it. They're selling soap on Watergate. But I had a topic that kind of goes over international boundaries, but also hits us hard at home, is here in Austin with, if you've read any of the reports about FM Properties' involvement in Indonesia and their gold mining operations and what's happening there.
Okay.
Actually, is it Indonesia or Malaysia?
Here's where I want to turn the brain on in this show and have a discussion on a different level than what we see on most call-in shows. This is how I want to handle that kind of subject differently.
Okay.
How does it affect you, Orlando? It's Orlando, right?
No, Orlando was the last guy. This is Brian.
Brian, sorry. Okay. You all look alike to me. I can't. All I see is the camera up here. Okay, I'll try to remember, though. That's a good host would remember your name. Well, actually, Jerry Spring and those guys have a card, and so they write it down, but I don't have enough hands. Anyway, tell me, how does that, whatever Freeport is doing or not doing over there, first of all, what's your source of information? How do you know what's going on over there?
There was information from, what's the name of the... Some of those words are hard to pronounce.
Well, I'm saying, where did you get the information?
I got the information specifically from the Chronicle, and
From the Chronicle?
Yeah.
Okay, so the assumption you're making is that the Chronicle, first of all, they have a reliable source, and second of all, they're going to report it accurately. Okay,
Hopefully.
just to understand. I'm not saying they don't. I like to analyze these things and see where do we get our ideas and what do we do about them. That's kind of what we look at on this show. So those are the assumptions. Now, how does it affect you? Whatever they're doing over there, how does it affect you? I read the same article.
How I feel it affects me is that it's an example of how multinational corporations can overstep government boundaries, which, going again, what would you call government if you wanted to give it another name? Protecting the protectors of our boundaries. When you allow financial institutions, which I think is really where the wars are at now, is economies, and you have people who can step over those bounds and affect economies or use governments or use people and use the resources that they've manipulated someplace else to get what they want, and say possibly in this case of a freer country. But it becomes an issue of selling human rights. And
Well,
for
you're
me,
kind of
it's
blurring.
that someday it will happen. It can happen here. We're watching it happen someplace else, but eventually these companies will become large enough that it won't matter who the government is. They'll do what they want because they've got the bucks.
Well, okay. I think what's in the middle of what you said there, I like the way you said this. You're thinking it through a lot more than a lot of people I hear from. And I like that. It's encouraging to me to hear that. What I want to concentrate on, though, a little bit is, first of all, let's assume what they've told us in the Chronicle is true and there are bad things going on over in Malaysia. Let's assume that. The only way that's going, I mean, I don't like that, but being a human being with limited energy and abilities, I can be more effective if I focus more on what's happening here. And to that extent, what I understand from what you've told me, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that the government, by becoming in effect a tool of this corporation, then can turn that same power against us, number one. And number two, they're taking the resources from us to fund this kind of activity as far as the government's involvement in it. Is that what you're saying?
But they're taking the resources from a Malaysian country
Okay, but that doesn't affect us. If they get it from
well,
the moon,
but they're using those money, and it can actually, because that very company has threatened at one point threatened to bankrupt our city, and in lawsuits to tie us up because we will not run out of money. They won't run out of money because they have an incredible source of gold, which they are using from outside of our country and outside of our taxation, outside of a lot of things. But however they're getting it, that's how it is affecting us here, because this company has become very rich someplace else.
okay, let's assume that. That the fact, I think I see two sides of that, or two parts of that. Number one is Freeport-McMoRan is rich.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to postulate here, being rich isn't bad, unless you stole the money. Now maybe you're saying they're stealing it in effect by exploiting the people in that country. But we don't own that country.
No.
Whatever deal they make with the people in that country, if you read that article the way I did, it's the government of that country that's killing the people on the bus. Remember, they had a soldier come on the bus and shoot that one guy and beating up the people. It's the government over there that's doing it.
And upholding their mineral rights.
Right, and we don't vote for those people.
No, we don't.
In my perfect world, okay, let's just look at, I'd like to just explain my worldview a little bit. In my perfect world, if you wanted to volunteer to go over there and join a guerrilla force to fight that government, the government is exploiting their own people. They're just getting kickback, let's say, from some kind of payment from Freeport-McMoRan that makes it worth their while. Okay, and a lot of governments do that in the world. But if you wanted to go over there, in my world, if you wanted to go over there and fight against them or do something there, you'd be free to do that. In this world that we're living in now, our own government will tell you whether you can do that or not. In fact, if you go fight in an army of a foreign country, I think that's one of the two ways you can lose your citizenship. If you join a foreign armed force. So your government right now is preventing you from acting out what you would want to do in terms of freedom. Now maybe I'm not saying you necessarily want to do that, but somebody who doesn't like what's going on there. We live here. To me, the thing to do is take away government's power. And again, I think you sound like you remember my other show where I want to come up with a new word for government that doesn't imply control of us, but only protection of us. So if we take, let's say, protectorate, let's make up that word for now. If we want to allow them to only be a protectorate, they won't have the power to grant favors to Freeport-McMoRan.
My fear is that this organizational entity that we're calling governments are quickly being stepped over. The bounds, their controls are becoming reduced as corporations become richer and larger and span the globe, to the point that I think that the government will no longer be an issue, whether it becomes a puppet or whether the laws are so riddled that the government uses one way or the other that we will no longer. I mean, we already see in a lot of ways how special interests gain a lot of favors. Well, I think eventually what's going to happen is you won't have to worry about gaining favors because they won't have to. And my fear is that there won't be a government that will be able to even stand in the way of this sort of activity.
Well, no, I think to stand in the way is less of a problem than to grant the favors, because you remember if you look at history, when the corporations started becoming bad guys, it started with, I believe, the railroads were the first one. We had the rail barons, and then the banks, and then I think some of the other guys like the coal industry and some of those people that had monopolies on resource. The only reason they had those powers is the government was giving them land. They were giving them a strip of land to put their railroads on and giving them areas to put towns in, and they would own a town. The coal
and
company
in
would own
some
the town.
cases sent militia in to quell activities of laborers who were in the right.
The government that was oppressing us.
But what I'm thinking now is that was the era when the government had the control of public lands, and they. What I'm saying is that the point is that they've given away so much now that they've just become a stepping stone.
As long as they have the guns, they have the right to do whatever. I mean, might makes right. Let's face it. I mean, we can say what we think is ethical, but we can only make that happen. Well, as individuals, we can make it happen two ways. We can convince other people, or we can try to enforce it. And what's happening is, I think that's one reason some people subliminally are afraid of this so-called Christian right, because they're going to government and say, government, use your guns to enforce people to live the kind of lives I want them to live.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's what's wrong, to me, is using government to do that kind of thing. It's way beyond the scope of anything that's safe, because if you look at the cycle that civilizations go through, the governments get so powerful and so permeated, and the taxes are so high, they're almost like 100% taxes. Like in the Soviet Union, the most recent example, had close to 100% tax. I remember a joke that a Soviet worker who defected to the U.S., he told this joke that they used to say in the factory. He says, we pretend to work and they pretend to pay us. And if you look, I used to work for the federal government, and I really try to do a good job, but it's very, very hard. Because number one, your pay is a political tool. If the lawmakers want the voting public to look away from the raises they're giving themselves, they say, we're going to freeze the pay of the government workers. And if they want to say, look, we're going to run a very ethical government, they make it harder for the people who are trying to do things to buy equipment and make buildings for the government, except when it serves a political end. So it makes it very frustrating. But what you end up doing, and I have to admit I did it to a certain extent myself, is why fight it? You can sit back, do the very minimum, and not take any crap from anybody, get your vacations and everything.
Hang in,
collect
get your
money.
pension.
Really. And so that is what happens it's the cycle because of human nature, I believe. I mean, from the Roman Empire, or as long as history, when you start having powerful governments that have heavy taxes on the people don't care. They're fighting their own government anytime they can to try to get out of these regulations and taxes and everything. There are not enough soldiers to enforce everything, and the soldiers are saying, why mess around with this? I'll just collect my money till I get my pension. And then the government topples over, just like the Soviet Union did. So, unfortunately, I don't want to see the United States get to that point. And I see enough, even in the Austin American Statesman, Sunday's issue today,
Mm-hmm.
there was something in there that was a little bit against government tax funding of this baseball stadium. And it's a complete turnabout for the Statesman. But things like that give me real hope that we're heading in the right direction maybe, and enough people are waking up that we've been conned for a very long time in this country.
And the city has done it too. It's conned its populace, and
I lump
hopefully
all governments together. To me,
hopefully the
now, I
Statesman
take
is
an
turning
extreme-
around because a large portion of its readership is saying, wait a minute, even if we like the idea of a baseball stadium, we don't like the idea of having the taxes rammed down our throat for it.
Yeah, I think it's probably the emperor's new clothes. I think some people, see, they tried to make it not just, I don't want to pick on the paper, but the people who were in favor of of these bonds, these so-called emergency bonds, they changed the issue, and you've got to listen to this when people are arguing with you. If you want to argue intelligently and understand what's really going on, these people were saying, "What's the matter? Don't you like baseball? Aren't you American?" It's not an issue about baseball. It's an issue about enough is enough. Taxes in this town are incredibly high.
Yeah.
I come from Southern California, which has its share of high taxes. But even though we don't have an income tax in the state, a state income tax, they make up for it by all these other fees and taxes that they charge. So
Certainly.
government is, to me, government is nothing more, in its current state, government is nothing more than a greedy parasite. And it's time to just cut it to the bone.
Well, thanks a lot for the talk, and
Okay.
I'll let some other callers talk.
All right, I appreciate it.
Have a good
Thank
one,
you.
Dan.
Thank you. Okay, I don't. No, nobody there. Okay. Well, I guess he's right. Everybody's watching Discovery Channel. Too bad. This might be my last show, so this is your last chance to say something here. Let me just do one thing here. I want to introduce you to Apollo the talking dog. This is, I believe, a deceased canine now, but he used to belong to a friend of mine, and I did this animation of him. And so this is in memory of Apollo the talking dog. Okay. I use that sometimes here on this show to, if I get a nasty caller, that represents him. But, see, I just don't see the phones ringing at all here, folks. My last show, call in, say something intelligent. Maybe this is not the kind of talk that people, that appeals to people, I don't know, because I've been watching Howard Stern to pick up little hints of what not to do. Because to me, and he's probably a very intelligent guy, he certainly knows how to market himself. But I mean, he's so taken with himself, and his show is so mindless that I thought, well, I'm going to start a talk show that's the opposite of Howard Stern. So that's what I'm trying to do here. Well, let me talk about a couple of things here. This has been, I used to tape this show, and I had a couple of hints, life-type hints that I used to use, still do, to kind of run my life. So let me share some of those with you and see what you think of them. One is, and this I started this when I was a little kid, if the crowd is doing it, there's probably something wrong with it. So I've never been one to really get into style. I went shopping yesterday with this lady, and some of the women's styles nowadays, I don't know who dictates these things, but they're ugly. The one thing I'm glad to see go away, though, is shoulder pads for women. Never liked those. I like women's shoulders the way they are. I don't want to see any pads on there. No shoulder falsies. So I'm seeing those go away. Okay, another one is if you can't tell, it doesn't matter. Now, what that applies is, for instance, you're driving down the street and you see somebody with long hair, and you can't tell if it's a man or a woman. If you can't tell, it doesn't matter. But there are other areas, too. Just like this last caller, Brian, was talking about what's going on in Malaysia. And I'll tell you, if you can't tell from here what Freeport-McMoran's doing over there, it doesn't really affect you. So it's time. I like to concentrate. The bottom line of this one is I like to concentrate on things that really matter in my life and then get on to the other things if I have time. Here's a good one. This just came up the other day, too. I met this lady who's a bodybuilder, and I didn't ask her out because one of my rules is never have a pet or girlfriend that can beat you up. I think that's an important one, and there's a corollary to this: never own a motorcycle that you can't pick up yourself if it falls over. Nothing more embarrassing than have to ask for help to pick up your manly machine. Okay. Oh, this is one from a movie called Chinatown, and that is at the right time and the right place, people are capable of anything. And so the way to apply that is to say, well, you know, so-and-so wouldn't do that. Like, let's say OJ, for instance, although unless you know him, whether he's guilty or innocent doesn't affect you necessarily, but unless you have a bet on it. But to say that someone's not capable of doing something is, I don't think is correct. Or like that Susan Smith that pushed a car in the water with her kids in it. Under the right circumstances, people are capable of anything. So you kind of have to watch for that. Okay, something I said here may have tickled somebody's fancy. Let's see who's on the line. Welcome to the Free Mind. What's your first name? Oh, we had another. There's the person that just called in. Okay. I was hoping for something intelligent, and it was another backwards-hatted kid. I don't know. All right, we can get back to my list. Here's something. Very many things in life are a con job. And this is just what Brian and I were talking about earlier when he called in. Here's somebody else. Just hold on for a second on the line, whoever's calling. But there's lots and lots of people out there that are trying to con you. So be on your guard for that. Welcome to the Free Mind. What's your first name?
There we go, Pete. Hi, this is Brian again. I just heard you say it was going to be your last show, so I had a question. I can never read the words on your opening logo. So now...
That's my name. That's my last name. Do you mean the twirly thing?
Yeah, it just
Yeah, it's
it
an
freaks my eyes
animation I
out
did.
trying to read it.
It's an animation I did out of my based on my name.
Oh, okay. And so this may be your last show, or it is your last show?
Probably will be. The fact that I'm out of work, I mean, I've got to put energy into looking for work, and it turns out Sunday night is kind of tough for me because, you know, I go through the Sunday paper, I can start faxing resumes and stuff, you know. So that, and it's kind of hard to be up for a show like this, you know, when you're thinking, geez, you know, I've got to make the rent and all that. So at least for a while, I may not do it. Plus, the politics around here are getting pretty bad. They're starting a new thing. I don't know exactly when it's going to start. I think maybe next month, called block scheduling, where shows that they consider offensive, they being the people who manage this place, which is there's a board of directors and there's I think she's just an acting general manager. And they had some meetings with us producers about it, saying, what do you think of this? And we all hated it, and they're going to do it anyway. So I don't know, you know. They wanted to have a special meeting again this past week, and I thought, you know, why should I go? We already know they're going to do what they're going to do. So, but to be honest, this is a socialized good. You know, in other words, this is tax funded, and so it's going to be administered by bureaucrats who have their own agenda. And so I don't know. It's getting tougher to do shows here, and if they don't like your show, they can put it.
So not just some of the wacky stuff that goes on that might offend somebody's...
Yeah, that's the key. Might offend the thing. And
their
and
moral
in the
sensibilities.
eyes- Huh?
Their moral sensibilities.
Yeah,
It might
well, I
offend
don't
their
know if
moral...
it's that, because I think there's going to be politics involved in the choice. Because if you look, I've had some trouble getting this show on. For instance, they lost my contract. There isn't one time that this show has been listed in the paper. You know, it just starts to build up. They lost, my billboard gets deleted every now and then that shows on that continuous
Oh, yeah.
thing in the morning. I mean, I only have so many ways I can get the word out about this show. And the fact that it's just mine that disappears makes me start to wonder. I mean, you're not paranoid if they're really after you. But I think it's just, you know, and there are other people that say that. It's not just me, but there are other people who put on shows here. And even if it's a personal thing that they just don't, these people who make these decisions just don't like the person, whether they like the show or not, it's harder. It's much harder. And I don't fight those kind of battles. It's not worth it. If I was getting paid for this, I would, but...
I heard that.
It's a
Well,
hobby to
hopefully
me.
your opportunity to gain access to the airwaves will occur again. And
Maybe.
we'll look forward to seeing you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we had somebody and they hung up. Look, if you call in, hang on, because I'm trying to get in conversations with the other people who do, and like to talk to you. If you have something to say. If you're just one of these people that says booga booga, I don't have time for you. But let's see here. Welcome to the Free Mind. What's your first name?
You're gay.
Well, that was another. See, that's if there's any sign of decline of civilization, it's people like that. I mean, it's just, where's your brain? You have an opportunity to talk to me and find out ideas and share things and tell me a problem or an answer or tell me I'm full of canal water, whatever your opinion is, and they say, whatever that was, I didn't even catch it. This is probably the same guy, but let's see. Welcome to the Free Mind. What's your first name?
Hey there, my name is Bill. Tell me your name again.
I'm Dan.
Dan. Hey, Dan, this is the first time I've caught your show.
Oh, good.
And I want to say that it is refreshing to see stimulating, intelligent discourse on TV. And this is, I was just, I said something on Austin.General. I don't know if you read that or not, but or Austin.Music, perhaps it was, about that this is cable in Austin, public access cable in Austin is one of the treasures, and I hope that I agree with Brian that I hope that you continue to do this if you can find some way, because it's very interesting, and I don't think there's very many places around the country that have this kind of thing on TV.
I agree. It'll be interesting to see what happens to ACTV, because the politicizing of it is just getting worse all the time. And maybe they'll back off from that, I don't know, because a lot of the producers are real upset about it. And without shows, this is going to be a very boring channel. But what the meeting I was at, what it reminded me a lot of was, if you remember Blazing Saddles, did you ever see that movie?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, remember where the governor and all these guys are upset about what's happening in Rock Ridge, and they're harump, and they say, we got to save our phony baloney jobs. And that is the impression I get, and I may be unfair to some of the board members, but the ones that I've heard speak, it sounds like they're more interested in that and cozying up to the city council than in making this a useful forum.
Wow. I have another topic that I can
Okay,
kind
let
of...
me interrupt you for a second. Somebody else is on the line. Let me just encourage you, whoever you are, stay on hold, because I'm trying to let everybody have a chance to really talk. But this show isn't as good unless people call in, so try to hang in with me, okay? So go ahead.
Okay, I would just like to, you were talking before about government becoming too big, and it is I think you called it a greedy parasite.
Yeah.
I have a particular matter which I feel very strongly about, and that's speeding tickets and traffic laws in general. Traffic laws in general, in my mind, in other words, I have a sports car and I like to drive fast, and it's why I bought the sports car. It's one of the true joys of my life.
What do you have?
I have an Integra.
Okay.
And
nice car?
it handles very well, and I love it, and it makes me feel good to drive it, and I don't hurt anybody, and I don't hurt anybody's property. But probably really soon, I'm going to be before the judicial system of this country. And you know what? I like to play a little mental experiment. I like to imagine an arbitrary person, just a fictional person that lived a life, and he was born, and he grew up, and he learned to drive, and he drove around really fast. And let's not even say that, you know, there are any laws or not. Let's not even imagine whether that applies. But let's say he drove around really fast and then he died. And during that time that he drove around, he never hurt anybody. He never infringed upon anyone's rights. You know, no property was damaged. Did this person really commit an infraction upon society that needs to be punished? And my idea is that laws are a reflection of some kind of moral, ethical basis, it should be.
That is the con job that we're being fed. That is the excuse. If you think about speeding tickets, okay, as a very good example of this, and you start, I'm going to give you a phrase to put in your mind when you hear things about government and see how often it fits. The phrase is, instead of protect and serve, it says, we want the money. Okay? Now think about that. If you hear a story about the
your
EPA,
money.
Whether it's the EPA, let's say some kids died of cancer in some town because of some pollution, what happens? The EPA gets money. Do the victims get it? No. In fact, the victims are prevented from suing up to a certain amount, especially in terms of nuclear accidents. You can only get $10,000 per person for nuclear caused damage. Not too many people know that. The bottom line, though, is the government fines are unlimited. Like the junk bonds, you know, that they have. Michael Milliken, what happened? Did he repay the money to the people he got it from? I never heard that he did. But he paid fines to the SEC. In fact, they cleaned out his bank account. The IRS came and got theirs.
Wow.
So you think about that now when you watch the news, everybody who's listening to me, you think how often that applies. They want the money.
Right. And I just think that there, where is the checks and balances in the police system and in the judicial system? It seems like that, the judges are lawyers, the legislators that create the laws are generally lawyers. There's like a whole lot of lawyers, and I think about if government was filled with plumbers, that they probably would pass a whole lot of laws that benefited plumbers.
Yeah, the amateur lawmakers that would then. They'd only be there a half a year, and they have to go live under the laws that they passed. You can't
Right.
give us. They don't give speeding tickets not more than once to a legislator.
Right.
They'll lose their job or go have a desk job.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry, Senator. We'll give you a warning today.
Yeah, they don't even do that. They have special license plates, so they can't even. They don't even stop.
Oh yeah. So like the government was formed with checks and balances to keep everything in check. When one side started getting too much power, this other side could kind of control it and balance it.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's all out of whack now. I don't remember anyone asking me as a citizen about what fines should be for speeding tickets. What should be an appropriate fine for somebody that basically didn't hurt anybody or didn't infringe upon anyone's rights or hurt anyone's property. I think that if there is no property damage involved, a speeding ticket, yes, we probably should have traffic laws, but a speeding ticket should be a $10 fine, just like a parking ticket. Now, if there was property damaged, or if somebody was hurt in some way, yeah, make the person pay somehow and have it benefit the victims, like you said, not the government.
Because then it's a civil matter. It's
Right.
a civil matter between you and the victim.
Right.
Okay, that's the problem. The government got themselves in the middle, and the whole fallacy there in our police, in the use of our police. I think we need a small police force for one purpose: to apprehend suspects. Not what they say now. The police force is to prevent crime. Completely different outlook.
Right.
Because what do you do to prevent crime? You
Let's
take
go
away-
out and look for potential criminals.
Potential, right?
What's
You take away freedoms.
what is a potential criminal?
They have profiles. You can go to the airport, and if you fit a profile, which they're not going to tell you what it is, you'll end up in a room getting strip searched.
Man, I don't know about
Have
you,
them
but
stick stuff up your butt,
that kind of stuff goes on, and it scares the hell out of me when they start looking about potential criminals or you've increased the probability of something bad happening. That's
and
pretty wacky.
See, that's why I disagreed with you about the ethical basis for laws, because it's really abused now. Because if that was really true, you could have one law, and that is nobody do anything bad. Okay, you could or say, well, obey the 10 Commandments. Something real simple. Instead, you've got all these little dinky little things with all the loopholes and twists and turns that a common person can't normally understand, and you need. One of the theories I have is that really the government has taken over the role that used in very primitive times was held by the priesthood, or if you look at a lot of current primitive religions that are still around, what we would call primitive religions, based on gods and idols and stuff like that. The priests basically run the show, and the idols and the incense. I think if you woke up one of those priests in the middle of the night, he would admit it's a con job. That wooden idol doesn't mean anything to you. It's not going to hit you. It's not going to eat you. It's not going to send you to hell. The whole thing is a matter of control. What's happened is religion has become less important in our lives that way. People are getting more suspicious of, well, I don't see God, or what about Zeus? I don't know who he is, and so there are fewer people who really fervently believe in these things. And so now government has taken over as a way of controlling people.
Right.
So people who are interested in controlling others, that's where they go. They used to go in the priesthood. Some of them still do. More of them go into government. There are more vacancies in government.
Well, hey, it looks like sounds like you got some more callers
Well, I
online.
did for a minute, but they hung up. They didn't wait. So.
Okay, I would if just go on and take that religion thing and say that religion also ought to have some kind of ethical basis behind it, meaning that to join a particular religion, one of the things that's usually alleged as a goal of the thing is to make you into a better person. And what I say is that a lot of religions don't seem to, if you tried to use that to measure their effectiveness, that religious people don't tend to be any better or any worse than any other people.
No.
In that regard, they're ineffective.
Many of them hide behind the religion. Look at Jimmy Swaggarts and people like that are the extremes. But my dad was in the clergy, and I won't say he was a crook, but he played fast and loose. It was more like do what I say, not what I do. And I certainly saw the other people he associated with him, a lot of them, in minor ways, not like Jimmy Swaggart and anybody that I personally knew. But I think what it is, the danger is, and I think the danger is with some politicians, like let's say, I'll pick on Clinton again, they start believing their own bullshit. They get surrounded by yes men who bow down to them and want their little piece, the little jackals. I see animals when I talk about it. The lion gets surrounded by jackals and starts believing all the flattery until to him it becomes true.
Right.
And I think it's true of a lot of judges. I mean, look at Ito. I'm sure Ito's a real nice guy. A lot of his rulings make sense. But you look at the smug look on his face a lot of times. You know, when he gets to boss the little short Ito, gets to push around this huge Johnny Cochran, you know, and say, sit down and be quiet, or that's $1,000, you know. It gets to you after a while. You start believing that you really are powerful like that. It's human nature. I don't think, you know, people like George Bush are maybe inherently evil, but I think they become as if they're evil people because the power gets to them.
Right. It's almost unavoidable.
Let me do this. Let me put you on hold for a minute and see who this other person
Okay.
is. Hello, you're on the Free Mind. What's your first name?
Hi, my name is Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Pretty good. Could I change subject?
Yeah, let me put you on hold for a second. What is your subject? I just want to finish this thought, but I didn't want you to go away.
Okay, well, go ahead. Well, I just wanted to suggest an alternative on this stadium deal.
On what
For-
deal?
An alternative on this big deal. They're wanting to spend a bunch of money for a baseball stadium.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Well,
Hang on. I forget your name. I'm sorry. On line one. Just hang
but
on.
I'll just tell you real quick.
Sure, that's fine.
Why do we have to spend a bunch of money for an open-air facility when there's a lot of people who are photosensitive? It's been proven that being out in the sun for long periods of time can give you skin cancer. Why can't we have an Austin Dome if we're going to have to spend a
Who's
bunch
going
of
to pay
money
for it?
with indoor natatoriums and
ma'am.
things like that?
Who's going to pay for it?
Well, I don't want the thing in the first place, but if they're going to do it, you know, why not do
spend
it
10
right?
times the amount? Is that what you're saying?
Huh?
Because the money has to come from somewhere, and that's
Well,
my
I
problem.
don't think it's a good deal anyway.
That's what I would like to concentrate on in your comment, because I think that the first thing that you said is kind of old-style thinking. It's like there's some pot of gold that government gets all this money
Well, there ain't
from.
no pot of gold. It'll end up costing us money. Our property taxes will end up going up. It'll be just a white elephant.
And it'll be a bad design, just like the convention center.
Yeah, it's too quick. You know, they're trying to push it on us too quick.
It's a con job. Just say no. When the government wants money, just say no.
I'm tired of it. I'm
Right.
tired of
Go
the
vote.
property.
Be sure
Let me tell
and
you.
vote.
I want to say one more thing.
Okay.
People say, well, if you don't own any property, you don't pay property tax. Bull. If you're paying rent on a lease or you're paying rent, you're paying that landlord's property tax.
Or if you buy a product here, you're paying through the
Yeah.
cost of the product. You're paying for any taxes. you pay.
Exactly.
There's
And
no
so
such
many
thing-
people don't realize that.
There's no such thing as a corporate tax. I want to emphasize that. The first thing that somebody like Clinton is going to say to con me is, we're going to increase what the rich people pay, or we're going to increase the taxes for the corporations. There's no such thing as a corporate tax, because all they do is put it in the cost of their product, and you pay the tax twice. You pay your own tax, and you pay when you buy the product.
Exactly. Boy,
So-
you think just like I do.
So just say no. Be sure and
Just
vote.
say no. I'm tired of these tyrants, these little tyrants.
Hold that thought and just say no. Go vote. October 7th.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay, you
Thank-
have a nice evening.
Thanks for calling.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, sir, you still there?
Hey, I'm still here.
Tell me your name again.
My name is Bill.
Bill, okay.
Yeah, that last
These
caller
long
brought.
names are hard to remember.
Oh yeah, I have trouble with that too.
Yeah.
That last caller brought up some interesting points about everybody pays property taxes. Yeah, and that stadium is kind of a strange deal.
Yeah.
But I just think that getting back to the law thing, that law should be a reflection of some kind of rightness and wrongness. If laws start existing for their own purpose, if laws start popping up that basically that if people start getting fined and people start paying civil penalties by jail time or high fines or whatever for basically actions that don't really hurt anybody
Let
and
me
don't even
interrupt you
hurt.
there, because we're getting a little short of time and I got another caller
Okay.
here. But let me
I'll let you go.
Let me ask you one question
Okay.
about what you said.
Uh-huh.
And that is, define right and wrong.
Hard thing to define, but everybody knows what it is.
No, you did define it. If you hurt somebody else or not.
Sure.
To me, that's the definition right there.
Sure.
If you go beyond that, then it's somebody else trying to build their utopia at your expense.
I agree. Hey, man, nice talking to you. Thanks.
Same here. Take care. It's
Bye.
always nice talking to somebody who agrees. Welcome to the Free Mind. What's your first name?
Jack,
Jack, hi.
how are you this evening?
Fine, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
What do you have to share with us?
Well, I just
Only have a couple minutes,
I just
unfortunately.
want to say that this is the first time I've ever seen you, and it makes me sad to hear you say you know it might be your last.
Might be my last. I kind of like doing it when people like you call in. It's nice and friendly, but it's a hassle. Just to get this time today was very, very hard, and it's getting harder. I'm not going to say that particular reason was necessarily aimed at me, but I am not in the in crowd here either, and if you're not, things are harder.
I understand. I don't guess I've ever been a member of the in crowd.
Good for you.
You know, I just you know the state
Actually,
of
you know, if you could just give me one thought there, because I really have to sign off here.
our. Oh, surely. I just you know basically think that you know your show and your concept of what's going on in the world today is great.
Well, thanks.
You know, it's a shame there aren't more like you. You know that.
Well, thanks. Well, there's at least two of us. Well, the other callers we had today were very good. That's encouraging to me. Maybe I will come back.
I hope so.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Bye bye.
Bye. Okay, I have another caller, but unfortunately I cannot talk to you. I'm real sorry. I'm going to have to get going here. But thanks for calling, everybody who did, and everybody who wanted to, and everybody that was on hold and gave up. And just remember to keep your mind free and always question, not just to question authority, but just question what's going on and live with your brain. Use that brain and you'll be a happier person. So good luck to you and keep your mind free.